week of a lot of rumors and a lot of reports, but not a lot of movement. We will break down all of those and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, December 27th, 2024. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome in, everybody. Happy Friday. Hopefully we'll send you off into the weekend here with a fun and nice little show. I think today's episode is probably going to be a little bit shorter than usual. Now, every single time I've ever said that in the history of this show, I've gone and been more than, gone way longer than I anticipate. So we'll see what happens, but I do think today's probably going to be a little shorter. Happy holidays, everybody, no matter what you celebrate. Hope you had a fantastic week and celebrated with your family. I just got back I have like 50 million Christmases to go to with the long and many branches on my family tree. So I'm still actually kind of dressed up, just got back from a brunch thing, et cetera, et cetera. So hope everyone had a fantastic and a great week filled with lots of love. A lot of rumors were flying around this week. And if an actual move happened, we would have had an episode on Wednesday, but it didn't. And I could have, left my family Christmas Eve dinner early and come home and record an episode just talking about a bunch of rumors again. Or we could have taken the holiday off, and that's what we did. So we're back on the horse today. Some Alex Bregman news, and that is probably the biggest storyline that a lot of people are following within this fan base at the present moment. There's a few others, again, we'll kind of talk about and dive into here today, but all eyes are on Bregman. And I think that it makes a lot of sense. I don't think that it is without... It is not a perfect player where he's just going to come in and win MVP in year one or anything like that. But he is immediately one of the best players on your team. He's immediately one of the best hitters in your lineup. And he fills a direct need defensively, which is third base. He checks all of the boxes that the Tigers are looking for outside of maybe like big home run hitter, I guess. It is something that a lot of fans, myself included, are kind of looking for them to add this offseason. So maybe he doesn't exactly fill that, but this guy's still, 20 plus home run potential. And it sounds like the Houston Astros are out on Alex Bregman, and he will not go back. And we could genuinely, I could spend a whole show just talking about the Astros last, 5 years, I guess. Every single person from that 2017 and 2019 core that they had, they convinced the fan base and said publicly to the media that they were either not re-signing one player so that they could re-sign another one, or were trading a player so that they could re-sign another one. And now they've traded Kyle Tucker. They have not re-signed Bregman. They didn't re-sign Correa. They didn't bring back Springer. They didn't bring back Cole. They've let almost the entire core, sans Altuve, walk from those original teams, and they didn't retain any of them, again, outside of obviously Altuve. It's very, very fascinating to me. And that's not to say, again, like they're paying Altuve. They're still a talented team. I still think they're going to be pretty darn good and probably push for a postseason spot, even despite the loss of some of these players. Jordan is still one of the best hitters in baseball. It's just really, really interesting kind of storyline to follow. It also sounds like the New York Yankees are out on Alex Bregman. They're not going to trade for Nolan Arenado, and they're not going to go all in on Bregman. At least that's the most recent round of reports. And that, you know how reporting is. As someone who works in journalism and writes for the Detroit News myself, I mean, golly, like that kind of stuff can change on a dime. But that is the most recent report that those two are out on him. As far as the Tigers stand, Evan Petzold of the Detroit Free Press did a fantastic job kind of breaking down the current up-to-date saga that is Bregman to the Tigers. Says that there is mutual interest, that Bregman would be interested in playing for the Tigers. And obviously, like we said at the top of the show, he checks a lot of boxes. Right-handed hitter, third baseman. Mentioned in the piece that there is a willingness for Bregman to play second base, which I think is very important. Not in the immediate, because Bregman's still a really good defender over at third base, and the Tigers need a third baseman. But if you sign him to 5 to 7 years, you're going to want that positional versatility. And even just AJ in general is going to want that positional versatility. The biggest thing from the Tigers' perspective, not from this perspective, not from the Bregman saga as a whole, the sweepstakes entirely, but from the Tigers' perspective, it sounds like the biggest thing is that the Tigers don't want to eclipse 200 mil. And that's a report that was made a while ago, and Petzold now has doubled down on that in the most recent report from him. The Tigers really don't want to go over 200 mil when it comes to Bregman. I think that's such a large possibility of numbers, right? Like that is infinite numbers are bigger than 200 mil. So it's tough for me, like 290 mil. Like I'd probably shy away from that a little bit, maybe, or I'd be a little bit more hesitant. But if we're talking like 210, and the highest offer right now is 185 or 190, like that, I probably wouldn't mind that as much. That there's a lot of nuance into anything over 200 mil. However, there's a lot of reports from a lot of national media as well that the Tigers are aggressive in their pursuit for Bregman. That terminology is important for me, because really where I sit right now is this is the most optimistic I have been on Bregman becoming a Tiger in this whole thing. I mean, I came on here, a week or two ago and said he's not going to be a Tiger. Like there might be interest there, whatever, but he's not going to be a Tiger. Now, I still don't think we're the number one like betting odds, right? I don't think the Tigers are the clubhouse favorites or the Vegas favorites to land him. But I think they are legitimately in the conversation. I think the Tigers want Bregman. They are actively talking to Boris and to Bregman's camp about bringing him on board, and they are trying to find a way to make it happen. Do I think that it happens in the long run? I'm still hesitant, admittedly. And I still think that there's a much better chance that he ends up in Boston as it's, on paper right now. But I do think that the Tigers are actually legitimate players in a big name free agent. And I'm not sure I've actually thought that since, really probably since the Baez and Eduardo Rodriguez offseason. So that's exciting. Got a few more pieces that I want to touch on with the Bregman thing, then we'll move on to some other news and notes from the week. We will do that right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team, will score. It is absolutely thrilling. They have which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team or total the two teams put together will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Monday as we head into the end of the calendar year. We'll have some conversations about, we always do like a cheesy kind of New Year's resolution, what we want to see from the team this year type of stuff. So that'll be fun. We'll do that at the top of the week next week. And of course, any updates with free agency and with the Tigers and whatnot, any news, we will obviously cover then as well. Putting a bow on the Bregman conversation, it sounds like the three other main suitors for Bregman outside of the Tigers are obviously the Boston Red Sox, who have been pretty aggressive with him all offseason. I'm not sure how that would work, if he would play second base for them or if they would move Devers to first and then maybe trade Tristan Cassis. I don't know. I like Cassis a lot. I think that he could get a real solid return. Maybe he's the DH there, but then you got some, I don't know. That's kind of a, they would have to move some stuff around. But again, the versatility that of Bregman saying he's willing to play second base or third, I think is really good for him in these negotiations. Then the Mets sound like they're still players, and the Toronto Blue Jays as well. We'll talk about the Blue Jays a little bit later on in the show. The biggest thing for me, because there are some people out there that are very adamant on, you know what, for the right price, I'm okay with Bregman. And that's kind of, where I don't want to overpay and give Bregman $400 million. Like I totally understand that mindset. There are some people that are very hesitant to bring him in because of his age and the potential dollar sign that could be next to him. One, I understand. I completely understand. We have watched the Javi Baez contract turn into one of the worst in baseball, but not every contract is like that. And if you are afraid to pay free agents up front because you are scared of the production that they are going to have when they decline toward the end of the contract, then you will basically just never sign a free agent. So that is a risk that every team weighs, and there's pros and cons to it. But if you ever want a free agent, you have to. You have to. And on top of that, and my biggest point is the Tigers' payroll is so low, guys. It is lower than the Athletics. It is so low at the present moment that they could give Bregman $300 million, not only $200, $300 million, and still be in the bottom part of baseball in total payroll for the 2025 season. I promise it's okay. They have the resources. I assure you. They absolutely are not in a position where like Bregman's the only free agent they can sign going forward, at least on paper. Now, if Illich is gonna do an Illich thing and be like, hey, you got $40 million to spend for the upcoming season and that's it, and then you can never sign a free agent again, well, then that's an ownership problem, and take it up with him. But as far as, like, would the Tigers be strapped for money going forward if they did this? Absolutely not. They would still have one of the lower payrolls in baseball. Again, if they gave him $300 million, which they won't, they can do it. And he checks a lot of boxes, and I think they should. Okay. Some other interest from around the league involving the Detroit Tigers. Kirby Yates, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago when the report first happened. That report has been doubled down on by a few different people as well. So we'll see what happens there. I love it. I think that he's exactly what this bullpen needs. A righty that gets swings and miss, gets strikes, throws a very, very high strikeout rate, one of the highest in all of baseball this past season. He is up there in age, but it's bullpens. It's reliever. It doesn't, like, age doesn't really matter with bullpen. Like, you're not signing a reliever to a 10-year deal. Like, it doesn't really matter. He that's fine. So very, very still want that to happen, to be honest. Very hopeful that will happen. And, if both of those happen, you're talking about a complete 180 of public opinion of the offseason, I think. And that's really exciting. And I've tried really hard to not be doom and gloom, but I feel like I haven't done a very good job at that. And I feel like I kind of ride the roller coaster a little bit too much. So I apologize for that. I feel like some days I'm like, hey, like we're like today. It's like, hey, we're actually in on Bregman. This could be really good. And then you have episodes like there was one last week where I was like, everything sucks. We're not in on anybody. We haven't signed anybody. Like this is an awful offseason, whatever. So, trying to stay level-headed here. We'll see what happens through the offseason. At the end of the day, there's still a lot of talent that's out there in free agency, and the Tigers, although they've been quiet, could still be loud. It's not a guarantee, but it's not impossible either for them to still have a very productive, successful offseason. So we'll see what happens there. Some optimism here for the holidays. Why not? I think the other two big storylines from the Tigers were involving the Toronto Blue Jays publicly. I shouldn't say publicly. A report from The Athletic stated that the Blue Jays may be interested in trading Bichette. Put an exact price tag on that. There's a Sports Illustrated article that kind of highlights that and if it makes sense for the Tigers to do as well. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about Walker Buehler signing with the Boston Red Sox and comparing and contrasting, we'll say, that deal with the Red Sox to Alex Cobb signing with your Detroit Tigers. We will do both of those things right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Game Time. Game Time is the best. And it's focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. There are so many fantastic offers and deals over at Game Time. I urge you to go take a look at it. It'll be really fun for the 2025 calendar year. All-in pricing where you get your total up front. There's none of those, I'm going to go through this purchasing, site or app, and then I'm going to have, it's like $40. And the next thing you know at checkout, it's $80 because of all the surprise add-on fees and stuff that they throw on at checkout. There isn't that when you use the all-in pricing feature at Game Time. They also have the lowest price guarantee. And of course, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets. I've said it enough over the years. You'd think I'd have it memorized by now. With Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, everybody, welcome back. Your third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always. So the two big reports, Bichette and Walker Buehler, happening throughout the week. I still have serious doubts that the Blue Jays are actually going to trade Bichette. I think this is just like a yearly thing. Because if they trade one of them, being Vlad or Bichette, then they have to trade the other. It really, to me, makes no sense. And I talked about this a little bit a few weeks ago when talking about the Vlad kind of drama. Was like, I am a very kind of all in or all out person when it comes to this kind of stuff. And I don't understand why you would go, okay, we're going to trade Bichette, but we'll extend Vlad. Well, you just traded, you're extending Vlad to build around him, and you just traded a piece away. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And Bichette didn't have a great year this past year at all. And like, that's worth noting. But I think it was Jim Bowden of The Athletic put out an article and was asked about the Bichette market and stated that he thinks the Blue Jays would move him for 2 top 10 prospects in an organization. Now, there's a little bit of nuance that comes with that because not all farm systems are created equal. There are some really, really bad farm systems out there. The Tigers, for most of my life, have had a really, really bad farm system. That is not the case anymore, however. The Tigers have widely considered to be, thanks to a lot of people in the front office, Scott Harris obviously overlooking it all, but there's a ton of assistant GMs and whatnot that do a fantastic job. We talk about that all the time with draft season and with player development. And, Rob Metzler, we talk about a lot. There's a lot of guys that deserve a ton of credit for the evolution and the growth of this farm system. But now it's one of the best. And I think that works in the favor of a team that is, in theory, asking for 2 top 10 organizational prospects, because the Tigers can go, look, Bichette at the end of the day is a 1-year rental, right? He's a free agent at the end of next season. And he had a really not great year this year. We're not going to give you one of our top end prospects for him. We're not giving you like a top 100 prospects in baseball for him. And matter of fact, because our farm system is so good, here are 2 guys that maybe would be, or maybe it's 1 and 1. Maybe you can go, okay, here's one guy that's a top 10 in our system, but the second guy, he would be a top 10 somewhere else, but he's not in ours. And I've talked a lot about on this show how, when people use prospect rankings way too literally, no organization is calling up another organization and is like, hey, Baseball America or MLB Pipeline, which are very respected and brilliant people. I'm not trying to slight the people that put those lists together. They do fantastic work and no ball, okay? But no organization is like, hey, Baseball America has this prospect ranked 23, and I think he's worth a top 20 prospect, the guy I'm trading you. So, you need to get together a better offer. No, you have your own scouts, and you determine who you think is good, and you have your own set of data that you pull from. So, I think that it is important to remember all of those things. When it comes to the fit of Bichette on the Detroit Tigers, I would love a shortstop upgrade, okay? I really would. I have no issue with the premise of that on paper. I also don't think the Tigers are going to be real players in that market. One, I don't think the market really even exists. Again, I think the Blue Jays are going to hold on to Bichette and Vlad. But 2, and far more importantly, just from the Tigers' perspective, I guess if you can guarantee an extension, maybe this conversation changes a little bit. If you have on good authority that, hey, when we trade for him, we'll be able to extend him right away, that's fine and dandy, and that's nice. And that helps a lot. But I think that if the Tigers are going to upgrade at shortstop, it's going to be a more guaranteed long-term option. And I also don't think they're in love with trading away prospects for players that had, to be honest, as poor of a year as Bichette did for the Blue Jays this past season. I'm not sure there's a fit there with Detroit, but if that did happen, I would be fine with it. I'm all about a shortstop upgrade, all about it. Would welcome it with open arms. I also then don't know exactly what they do with Javi. I know we all are, every episode of this show, I feel like somebody brings up, when is Javi being bought out, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not sure what their plan is with Javi. I'm really not. I'm not sure anybody is. Right now, it sounds like he's going to play shortstop, at least in a platoon role. So we'll see. The last thing I want to bring up is Walker Buehler signing with the Boston Red Sox 1 year for $21 million, a little bit over, 21.05 mil. This is one where on paper it doesn't look great for the Detroit Tigers, because they signed Alex Cobb, who was contemplating retirement, for 1 year, 15 mil, and incentives can take that up to 1 year, 17 mil. But I also think there's a lot more nuance to this. I want to be fair to the Tigers front office. I think there's significantly more nuance to this than maybe people give it, credit for, than people admit. And probably the biggest one, a player has to want to come to your organization. Far too often do fans look at just one contract and another and be like, well, we could have done that. Not if he didn't want to play for you. No, you couldn't have. There used to be, and it's not as much anymore, but back in when I was growing up, in the early 2000s, there was literally the Mariners tax was a real thing. And the Mariners, if you look at a map and just look at where every city that has a Major League Baseball team is located, the Mariners are on an island. There is no one near the Seattle Mariners in terms of just like straight up proximity, like geographical distance between Seattle and other things. So there was a saying in the baseball world was, hey, if the Mariners want to sign a free agent, they have to pay the Mariners tax. They have to give them their market value plus an extra, whatever, 15 mil, whatever the it was for that given year to bring somebody in. And so that's a thing. Like you have to, people have to want to play for you. So I don't know Walker Buehler. I don't know his camp. I don't know his agent. I don't know if he really ever wanted to play for the Detroit Tigers. Maybe he didn't. But I do understand that optically, when you look at Alex Cobb, I almost said Ty Cobb, Alex Cobb, 15 to 17 mil, late 30s, pushing retirement, through 16 innings last year versus Walker Buehler, pre-injury was like in Cy Young consideration and was a really big name. I understand. I understand the frustration. I totally get it. I also want to be fair to the front office. I don't know Buehler's market either, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the market value was for him. And I'm also not really sure. Maybe his medicals suck, right? Like there's a ton of nuance. Maybe the Tigers medical staff was like, hey, yeah, no, his shoulder is still really messed up. Don't go near that. I have no clue. But I did want to address it and say I understand the frustration because on paper, it certainly doesn't look awesome. But there's a lot of nuance to everything. Okay. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We will, of course, be back on Monday, recapping the weekend and talking about what we want to see from the Tigers in 2025. I appreciate you all greatly. Hope you all had a fantastic holiday. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope, and I'll catch you on Monday, baby. Go Tigers.